God bless you guys. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. I am so excited, very overjoyed, honestly, to be back here with you guys, being able to give you what the Lord has given me. And it's been a minute. It's been a really, really long break. Normally, I do a break. I like to take kind of a Sabbath, if you will. So I'll give a little background before we get into today's topic on why I was gone for so long. Normally, it is a month. I like to give myself at the start of the year. It's my second year doing it, and I find a lot of benefits to it. Just a detox, pretty much, of entertainment overall. So not just social media. That's TV, just anything that will kind of swerve me in and like loop me in, have my attention for a good while. I do away with it for the first month of every year just to kind of really just refocus. And I think it's good to do at any point. I've just, for the second year now, done it the first month of the year. And this year it started that way, with the goal of it being a month like it was last year, but it went on for a bit longer. And got back to my normal stuff, been back on social media for a little bit now, but Let's Talk About It was still on pause. And there was a lot, I feel like, in the season, like I really needed. There was something I was searching for from the Lord, and I think it was a little bit of like direction and realignment to like the purpose, to the why. And God had to kind of bring me back to that and remind me that this is not something I decided to do for myself. It's actually a lot more comfortable and easier for me to not invest any time in doing any of this, right? And although that would be easier, more comfortable for my flesh, I have to obey, right, what the Lord has put in my heart. And I know that Let's Talk About It was not something that I was jumping up and down for joy to do when the Lord first placed in my heart. And it took a while. I did not obey right away. Delayed obedience is disobedient. So I was disobedient when the Lord first placed this in my heart. One, did not find value or did not see value in like, oh, what I have to say, like, why do people want to hear that? And then the Lord really had to minister to me and remind me, this is not about you, right? You are just a vessel. This is about them hearing what I have placed in you for you to deliver. So I had to remember to kind of get over myself, right? The world doesn't revolve around me. Yes, you guys might not want to hear me, right? But the Lord puts his grace and his favor so that, people tune in, and what they're tuning into is really not me. It's what the Lord is saying. So I needed kind of a reminder of that. I think during this season, I also was looking for like direction and alignment. Like the Lord knows a desire that I have in my heart, a new like series of topics I wanted to get into. But I was feeling a bit insecure, you can say, about diving into those things. And I'll elaborate once we do start that series. But the Lord really spoke to me like directly, and I thank God that God is always speaking, right? You just have to really be paying close ear on that. But he knew this hesitation, sort of say, that I was having, and I felt inadequate to come back, right? Not necessarily knowing like what's next for Let's Talk About It. What is next? Having this like desire to bring something forth, but not feeling equipped. And the Lord reminded me, right, like you don't need to know it all. You don't need to be perfect for you to be able to talk about what the Lord has placed in you. And I remembered, right, is in the Lord, right? He perfects himself in our weakness. And again, this is not about us. It's not about perfection like Moses. Let's not give the Lord 100 excuses. He already knows, what he has placed in you, what you lack. And really we lack nothing, right? Because again, he perfects himself in our weakness. So anywho, long story short, that is why I was gone for such a long while. I feel like the Lord really had to readjust, really had to speak to me on a personal level about the direction, right, in the season that he wants us to talk about it to take. And for me to really just lean in on him, right, in those moments where I don't feel adequate or equipped, to kind of just keep going, really just depending on him, because like this is all for his glory. Has nothing to do for something for myself. The only joy that I get out of this, honestly, is I'm humbled and joyed that the Lord would select me, to bring something forth to the people that watch this. So that is what brings me joy, right? It's not hearing the sound of my own voice. It's not talking. It's not putting myself out there. I'm not that type of person. I salute those that are, but it's not me. I'm more to like myself in my corner, my bubble, and I'm happy there. But the Lord has really called me to step out of all of that, my comfort zone with Let's Talk About It. And long story short, here we are in obedience. As always, we're going to keep on going. And I thank you guys that have been so patient, right? And probably wondering like, oh my God, that's it? There's no more. Let's Talk About It is definitely here to stay. We just definitely, I think it's okay to take time, right? To lean in and really hear the voice of God and receive instruction and direction from the Lord. It's not about, I think it's okay to pause, never stop, but it's okay to pause, right? And realign ourselves with the Lord and understand what He's asking of us. But with that, I want to get into our topic. And our topic is really just kind of a pre-introduction to a series that I want to start. And may the Lord help me. I want to get into a whole series, couple of episodes all on marriage, life, kids, sex, everything you can think of under the bubble of marriage, that holy institution, all of that. We're going to talk about it here. And as always, we're going to keep it 100% real. But before we get into that pre-topic to that series, we are going to talk about singleness today. And please humor me and stay with me. A married person talking about singleness. Why? You'll see. You'll understand as we kind of go through this episode. But thank you guys again for faithfully tuning in. And as always, praying that any part of this may be a blessing to you and may speak directly to you. So thank you guys for being here. I want to start us off before jumping right in. And I want to read 1 Corinthians 7:32. And this book is written by Paul. Very important thing to know, and we'll talk about why. But I'm going to read it in English for those that are Spanish speaking. Just go to your Reina Valera, follow along. But I'm going to read the NLT version, 1 Corinthians 7:32 through 35. Just a couple verses. Sorry. All right, and it says, I want you to be free from concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please Him. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. In the same way, a woman who is no longer married or has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and in spirit. But a married woman has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. 35. I am saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best with as few distractions as possible. So before I started reading, right, I mentioned that this book was written by the Apostle Paul. And that is a very important thing to note, because it means that this book, right, is from his perspective, right, from the life. Everything that we say has a bit of our perspective, right? It's spoken through our lens, like it's something told through our lens. And Paul here, the whole chapter 7 is really great. And the funny thing is that right now he's talking to people that perhaps are not married, but a lot of the first part of this chapter, he's talking to married folks, like under all circumstances, women that have husbands that don't serve the Lord, vice versa, women that have husbands that leave them. And he's going over all these things, right? And he talks about so many great things that you get out of marriage. So I don't want us to think that Paul was against marriage. He was not, and pro singleness. No, he actually spent a good amount of this chapter talking about marriage and all the benefits of it. However, in these verses, right, he kind of takes a pause and he draws his attention to those that are not married, right? He says, I want you to be free from concerns of life. And there was just a lot of persecution going on during this time, so we can understand the context in which Paul is speaking about. And if you keep reading in 1 Corinthians 7, you'll see that he talks about like some troubles, and he just doesn't recommend being married during a time like this. And one, we have to remember that the Apostle Paul had a great passion for Jesus being known, right? Like that was his only focus. Apostle Paul was also not a married man. He dedicated his life to Jesus after his conversion. And Paul never married, right? And I do believe that Paul was called to singleness to like fully serve the Lord. Because like he says, what he says here, although biased, right, coming from his perspective of a single man who had all the time and attention to devote to the Lord, he is saying something that's factual. He says an unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him, meaning your only focus can be Jesus, and that can be totally okay. There is nothing else preoccupying you. And like he says, a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities. A married man can't just be like, Jesus, 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 and I'm not going to think about I have to work to sustain my family. I'm not going to think about, the responsibilities I have as a head of a household, where unmarried man does not have that responsibility. He's just owed to God. And he says the same thing for the women. In the same way, a woman who's never married or who's no longer married, maybe because their husband passed away or has never been married, can be devoted to the Lord, and it says in body and spirit. So there is a beautiful, beautiful thing that takes place in singleness. And that's why I want to talk about that before we start this whole series on marriage, because marriage is beautiful. I'm definitely pro-marriage. I've been married almost 8 years now. Love my husband, love my family. Wouldn't want it any other way. But I see and I understand completely the Apostle Paul's perspective here that he's talking to us about. And it's true. As a wife, as a husband, our interests are divided, right? We know that Jesus takes the first place, should be the center of our life, and everything else should revolve around him. However, we're not going to ignore that we have a responsibility, right? The Bible talks to us as women, right? As wives, what we're called to do, who we're called to be. So once you step into that role, there's a responsibility that you have, right? As a caretaker for your children, all these things, a husband as head of household, that's an added responsibility. So to Apostle Paul's point, our interests are divided, right? Like who we are now becomes more than just daughter of Jesus. Jesus is my focus. So I want to talk about like that, maybe short, sometimes longer, depending, right, on your personal story, but that season of life right before marriage, that season of life of singleness. If you're in that season, like I want to speak to it, right? I want to speak to what happens prior to you being married. And I wish that we would see singleness as a gift and not as like a chore, not as like a punishment. And I think oftentimes even prayer, like the way that you pray about your spouse and about being married, can reflect how you view singleness, right? Whether we appreciate it or we don't. And I think that a lot of times there's this like thirst and this yearning for like being a wife, being a mom, like that next season. We're always wanting more. And I think when it comes to being single, there's a really big emphasis on I'm getting older. I don't think I'm going to find the perfect person. Like all these worries. And I'm not going to say that they're not within reason. They definitely are, right? Like we know time is kind of ticking. Every next year that you grow older, if you're not married, you're probably looking forward to what that next season of life looks like. And again, it is a beautiful season as a married person with a family. I can attest to that. So completely understand that, right? But I also think that when we shift our focus and our view of singleness, and we started to see it instead of like a curse, and like God is making us wait, oh my goodness, it feels like an eternity, I haven't found the right person. Instead of looking at it like that, and if we saw it as a gift, like the Lord is granting me time. He is granting me more time to be fully focused on him, fully devoted to him, fully invested in him, without the added responsibility of being called, my responsibilities of being called the wife, my responsibilities as a mom. I wish we would see it that way, right? And that is what I want out of this episode, that if you are in that season of singleness, that if you have not gotten married, maybe you think you found your person, you're just not married yet, maybe you're still searching, maybe you're not even searching, you're not really interested, but you do wonder, right? What does that next season of life look like? I want to encourage you to pause, right? To not get too ahead of yourself. It is totally okay to wonder and to desire that next season, but I want you to focus in the singleness season that you are in. And I want you to shift that perspective and start looking at it as such a gift that many people don't have. Although you might feel like half the world is single, there are also a lot of people that are married. That's it. Like, that season for me is out the window, right? My interests are divided. I fall under that bucket where I have responsibilities as a wife, as a mom. And yes, it's beautiful. But if you are not there yet, enjoy the season that you are in. I think everybody should enjoy exactly the season they're in. If I'm married, I shouldn't be wanting and wishing, right, to be single. No, I'm called to love the season that I am in. Same as if you're single, right? Don't look at it as a punishment. Look at it as a gift. The Lord is granting you more time. So instead of, oh my God, another year single. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for another year that I can just focus on you. And I want to talk about what that focus looks like, right? I think that when the Lord gives us this extra time, right, another year that you are single, there should be something that's happening. And I'm very big on how you wait. Like, it's not just about waiting, because there are times that you have no other option but to wait. Like, you have to wait on something. Think practically, right? You're waiting on a shipment to arrive. You don't have any other option. There's nothing you can do to rush your order from coming to you after you've already ordered. Like, after it's on their way, you got to wait for the process of the shipping label and the carriers to do their thing for eventually your package to be at your door. There's really nothing you can do to speed up that process. But there's a lot that you can do in terms of how you wait, right? How you wait is extremely important. If I am desperately looking out the window, checking for updates, I'm growing desperate, right? I'm growing a bit frantic, perhaps even, right? And it's not a great state to be in, right? And a lot of times that's how we spend our singleness, like looking out of a window, like, oh my God, when is the man going to arrive? When is the day going to come? And what we don't notice is we're wasting precious time. There's so much we could be doing with that time, right? If I wasn't spending all my time looking out of a window, checking the tracking, my package is going to arrive when it needs to arrive. I could be spending that time doing something completely different that is more beneficial and indicative to actually me being prepared to receive that package. And marriage is the same way. Singleness is such a gift. And if we spend that time with the Lord, asking him to work in us, to prepare us for that next season, there will be a lot of longer lasting marriages. And I stand on that because I think that one of the biggest reasons why a lot of marriages are not working is because we're so quick, one, to jump into that stage. We are so thirsty. Like, there is such a thirst for, I need to find my man, I need to find my woman. Like, I want to be booed up, cuddled up, doing all the things as Christians again, right? Because if you are not Christian, you might be doing all the things, right? All the benefits of marriage, not being married. And, if you're not a believer, that obviously encourage you to become one, but it's different, right? If you are a believer, obviously there's a lot that you have to wait on, or should, at least to honor God, that you can't get into until you are married, right? So I feel like all of those things combined sometimes drive us to like push towards that next season where we end up picking ourselves, which I don't think we should be the ones picking. I think the Lord should be guiding us, right? And showing us who is this person. So a lot of times we're not guided. We're not shown by the Lord and the Holy Spirit who it is. So we end up selecting wrong. And another reason I think that marriages are failing and just not working out is because we're not seeing singleness as a gift, and we are peeping out the window. We are so thirsty, waiting for the Lord to come and give us our knight in shining armor, our perfect woman, when instead during that time we should be so fixated on the Lord, and we should be so focused on, Lord, make me who you designed me to be, because we're not, right? The Lord has this perfect blueprint when he created us of who I am supposed to be. And there are many things I do in my day that probably do not live up to who he created me to be. And that goes for all of us, right? Because we're human. So we're imperfect, and we make so many mistakes. And our focus should be that, like, Lord, help me be that blueprint. Because the blueprint that the Lord created for us to be that is the best version of ourselves, right? And we're not there yet. So we should have a yearning to get there. And I think that when you are single and in that season, it's such a gift to really focus on that. But again, right, a lot of times that's not how we spend singleness. We spend singleness so desperate for that next stage. We also a lot of times spend singleness, and I'm going to have to call out us women because we do this a lot with this list of like, Lord, this is what I need my man to be. And it's like a 2-pager of what we want this man to be. And it is like all the things. Like, I need him to look a certain way. I need him to be into you. I need him to be into me. I need him to have a great job. Like, I need him to be stable. I need him to know what he's doing. We have such a demanding list of who we think we should be booed up with for the rest of our life, right? As women, I need to speak from a woman's perspective. I had a list, guys. I definitely did, and it was a very long list. It was a very specific list. I honestly was pretty much writing out my husband on a piece of paper, and I probably still have that paper to this day. And the Lord knows, like, I didn't put his name on it, but I put all his features, like who he is, up and down on that paper. And I always say I am fortunate enough where what my heart desired lined up with God's will. For those have heard my husband and I's testimony, like, that was orchestrated by the Lord. Like, no way I could have forced even that to happen, just the way that everything did happen. But that is like one in rare cases, right? You don't always get every single thing that you ask for. And I will say, right, the person that I asked for, yes, right, but every little thing maybe that I was desiring, no, I didn't get, right? I didn't get a perfect man. I got an imperfect man that has a desire, though, to try and be the man that God created him to be. And I think that's where we lack sometimes. We're looking for this perfect person, but it's like, are you perfect? No, you're not. I wasn't, right? And a lot of times we're demanding so much of this person that's to come, but it's like, what are you doing in that season, right? And there's nothing wrong with you asking God specific things, right? As long as you are okay with his will being over whatever you desire, I think that's most important, right? It's okay for me to be like, Lord, this is the type of man that I want. But if you know that I need somebody completely different from what I'm asking, do your thing. I trust you. I trust your plan. I trust your perfect will. Mine isn't, but yours for my life is. If that's your prayer, that is totally okay. I'm not saying to not be specific. What I am saying is when we have this list, right, these specifics of what we are looking for, what are you bringing forth to that next season of life? What are you bringing forth to your marriage? Who are you bringing forth to your marriage? Because I think we spend singleness, instead of taking it as a gift of time where we can dedicate our life solely focused on the Lord, we are so focused on this person that's going to come into our life that we forget to look in the mirror. And by mirror, I mean in the word, right? We forget to look at it and see, well, I'm asking for a man according to, his word. But am I living according to his word? You know what I mean? Am I doing what I have to do to ensure that I am the wife that God has called me to be? And that is what I think we are lacking a lot in the season of singleness, is this time, right? This beautiful time where we can look inward and we can ask the God to work in us. And we are so busy asking the Lord to like create and work and like this perfect person for us. But what about you, right? You want this person to come to you with no traumas. Have you dealt with yours? You want this person to come to you super stable, but are you stable? You want this person to come to you and be able to treat you, put you on a pedestal and treat you like the best person ever, but are you ready to give that to someone else? I want us to see singleness as such a gift, right? Where we can focus on the Lord, but also a time where you can focus on yourself. I think that a lot of times, are you ever going to be 100% prepared? No, I will say that, disclosure. You are never going to be 100% prepared for marriage. You're never going to be 100% perfect and walk into a marriage as the perfect wife. That doesn't exist, or the perfect husband. But what does exist, right, is intentionality, right? And an intention, this time that you take out in the season of the gift of singleness, where you're so focused on the Lord. And when we're so focused on the Lord, the beautiful thing is that the Lord gives us exactly what we need, right? So like everything that you are still missing to be that ideal spouse for that person God is preparing for you, the Lord starts to equip you. The Lord starts to place things in you. Again, not to a perfect extent because we're never going to be perfect in this lifetime. But he starts to equip you. He starts to give you tools that when you're married, you're going to be like, oh, like you're going to find that you have what it takes. Like you have the tools in your toolbox to handle any situation that comes with marriage, which is many of them. And that is what I want us to walk away with, right? Before we dive into this nice series of marriage, right? That's interesting, where you talk about, what marriage is like and all these different hot topics on marriage, because there's just so much you can talk about marriage, and it is a beautiful thing, but it also comes with complexities, right? And before we start talking about, sex and shacking up and all these things, I want us to remember that if you are in a season of singleness, you are not married yet, that is a gift. There is no reason to envy someone else that's in that marriage season of life. Great for them, right? Good for us that are married. But if you are single, that is a gift in itself. And I want to remind you that with Apostle Paul's words, your interests are not divided. You can give yourself and honor the Lord in body and in spirit, like in fullness. There is no distraction, right? There's no kids demanding your attention. There's no husband or wife demanding your attention. It's just you and the Lord. Let that time be useful. Do not let your singleness season go to waste being so excited about this perfect person you expect to walk into your life, but then the Lord gives you the person you're meant to be with and you don't know how to steward that. And now you're in marriage and you're facing a lot more problems than you probably needed to because you spend your singleness season not preparing, not focused on the Lord to the extent where you were asking him to perfect himself in you, right? To transform you, to prepare you for that next season of life. Singleness is a gift, guys. It's an opportunity to devote yourself to the Lord. And it's a beautiful opportunity for the Lord to really work in you, to transform your life, and to equip you for what's coming next. Don't be so focused looking out the window waiting for that package to arrive, waiting on that next season desperately. Focus on the Lord and watch him work in you. Take the time to look inward and see what in me is missing, right? Where am I still falling short? Where do I not line up with his word? And once you start to line yourself up to more of the character of Jesus, trust me, the Lord has a way of bringing everything that you need into your life. It's like he says, focus on me and I will provide all of your needs, right? And he knows the desire. You have a desire to be married. He knows it. And in his perfect time, in his perfect will, he will provide that. But don't spend the beautiful gift of singleness season that you have so fixated on who you're waiting for, on all the characteristics of this person. Focus on the Lord. Focus on yourself. Look inward, right? What is still missing? What still needs to grow? What still needs to heal? What still needs to mature? What still needs Jesus perfected in you? So God bless you guys. I want to encourage you to keep tuning in. We're going to get into Let's Talk About It, our topics on our marriage series. And we are crossing our fingers that we can have a special guest here and there to accompany us as we discuss marriage, all things marriage, sex, kids, the whole shebangs, the conflicts, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads. I want to give you guys a perspective that isn't just from my female marriage perspective. So tune in, more to come, and God bless you guys. Love you guys. Thank you so much for faithfully tuning in.